Last year, I was fortunate to speak at the WEI conference in Edinburgh, and my content at that time focused on inequalities around access to finance for women with a singular lens on investment for the purposes of opportunity rather than necessity. I'm Deborah McGargle. I am Chief Legal Officer for a family office in the Middle East. I've worked in the private equity markets for over a decade, and I've recently been appointed as an advisor to the Women's Economic Imperative, which I'm absolutely delighted about. Much of my research to date has been centred around global data, which shows that for every £1 of venture capital monies invested, all female founders get less than 1 pence. This is data which repeats year on year, a continuous, stagnating, non-progressive state of play. As a community, we've really approached this problem gently. It has for sure been more of a moderate creep than an outright ambush. We've raised awareness of unconscious bias in venture capital. We've pushed for more women at a higher decision-making level in venture capital. And we have been advocating for supporting and showcasing women-led companies at every opportunity. And so I know these were small steps, but there were sturdy ones. After all, we were trying to change male-led behaviours, which have been over 60 years in the making. And no, I suppose the irony of being too disruptive in what is the disruptive sector has not been entirely lost on me. And then COVID-19 arrived and the world turned on its head. And I think personally I turned on my head. And in truthfulness, when I found my feet again, I actually didn't know who to help. I didn't know what data to measure. I didn't know where to even find the data or which drum to bang. As far as women entrepreneurs were concerned, investment for the purpose of opportunity had now become investment for the purposes of necessity, albeit relative to each case and each geography. But the very small sample pool, which I'd been focusing on since 2010, had suddenly swelled into the size of the Pacific Ocean, and I found myself with nothing more than a life raft on one side and an inflatable unicorn on the other, sailing through storm human crisis, as the United Nations Secretary General so aptly coined it earlier this year. And it just seemed impossible to make a difference. It seemed impossible, I suppose, to make a difference, at least single-handedly. As part of this wonderful opportunity, this wonderful invitation to today's conference, Dr. Margot Thomas asked us to address a number of pertinent questions, but the one which resonated with me the most is: has the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting social, economic, political impacts influenced my commitment to action? Has it made me want to stand up and really do something about these issues which affect women's economic participation? Many of the attendees and the speakers who were at last year's conference will tell you that I was suffering from huge imposter syndrome. The discussions around those inspirational, and they were inspirational, November days addressed everything from the importance of sustainable communities, the right to education, and the economic and the social significance of care in the changing world of work. And having listened to the challenges of getting approved and safe medication to villages, not to mention timely access to maternity care for women in childbirth in order to bring down the still unacceptable and very preventable neonatal mortality rate, my presentation on the injustice of Western women of being able to access the checkbooks of venture capitalists felt in many ways crass, almost insulting when compared to the very survival of women and children. But I was reminded that day that equality and empowerment for all women is one of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals and is key to all aspects of inclusive and sustainable development. Each pillar, whether this be health, equality of opportunity, security and social protection, or access to finance is actually codependent of the other. The commitment to action, therefore, must move as one. And this is more true now than ever as COVID-19 exacerbates existing inequalities for women and girls across every sphere. And so, yes, my commitment on action, my commitment to action on issues affecting women's economic participation has been influenced as a result of COVID-19. It has actually been influenced on a monumental scale, because I have realised that if I don't stand tall and hold up my side of the pillar, I'm actually weakening the rest of the structure. Failure to take action now not only means that goal 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals won't be by 2030, that's just 120 months away, but I believe that even the slightest pause at this stage could cause gender equality irreparable harm. Some of the early COVID-19 data from a McKinsey report and Enterprise Nations survey has already captured some of the impacts. 1 in 4 women are contemplating what would have been considered unthinkable less than a year ago, downshifting their careers, ceasing to trade their businesses, leaving the workforce altogether. Women, especially women of colour, are more likely to have been laid off or furloughed during the COVID-19 crisis, stalling their careers and jeopardising their financial security. Working mothers have always had a double shift, full day of work followed by a full evening spent caring for the children and doing household chores and cooking dinner and so on and so forth. But the support that was there, that even made it possible for women to be able to do this, including schools and childcare, has been completely upended. And the data shows through the survey that 52% of women entrepreneurs reported a need for funding. More than half of all women entrepreneurs reported a need for funding. 43% said a supportive local network was one of their priorities. And the same number again said that they needed help with improvement of their digital skills. And so you can see there is an awful lot of work to do. I am delighted to stand alongside you all today in this unrecognisable world that we find ourselves in, and to share my commitment to taking action on behalf of all women entrepreneurs, regardless of whether or not they're seeking finance to enable a fantastic opportunity or accessing funds simply to survive. I know that this is not something that I can or should approach single-handedly. I know that this is more important now than ever. And so I know that if I can attach my life raft to yours and everybody else follows suit, then we can very quickly find ourselves with a strong, impactful, collaborative floating island. An island that will allow us to continue the great work of those who've gone before us. An island that allows us to not take such a big hit from COVID-19. And an island which, moving as one, will allow us all to reach a more just and equal land.